On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Akroasis by the band Obscura, not the album. The Gorguts album Obscura did not make an album. That would be weird if an album made an album. What would you call that?
Albumception.
That's nothing. Anyway, enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bronze Medalist podcast. My name is Kale, and I'm your dad.
Dad?
You just let that one simmer for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Part of me always knew that it was true.
Oh,
I'm your son. I'm also your student,
I'm proud of you.
if you'll be my professor.
I'm proud of you, son. I'm your dad and your professor. A lot of people accuse me of nepotism, but really, you just get good grades because you're a smart kid.
Yeah.
You're a smart kid, and you know what? I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Every day you make me proud.
Thank you. I try.
If anything, I'm a little hard on you, which I feel bad about, but I think I have to in order to make sure that the other kids don't think that I'm favoring you.
And then I think at the end of the day, I'm going to grow up to be a better person for it.
I think you will indeed. Anyway, that was a nice little fantasy. So on this podcast, talk about a metal album that we listened to this week. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be talking about Akroasis or something like that by Obscura, which is a German technical progressive death metal outfit. But first, there's some interesting news in the music world that I want to talk about. They announced the lineup of Vans Warped Tour 2018, which I believe we talked about on maybe the first or second episode of the podcast. This is going to be the very last Warped Tour, or at the very least, the last full cross-country tour that they're taking under the name of Vans Warped Tour. Kind of a sad occasion, but there's a couple bands that I'm pretty excited about. Not all of them really jazzed me out. It's not nearly as heavy as it was last year. There was a lot of pretty good heavy bands there last year. This year, there's actually, and I understand why, there is a fair amount of older, like, emo and pop punk bands that are there that were popular, in the early to mid 2000s. Simple Plan is there. Real Big Fish is there again. They're a ska band. But the ones I'm excited about for the most part are August Burns Red, which is a metalcore band. Another metalcore band is Every Time I Die. There's a hardcore band called Harm's Way, which I haven't actually listened to before, but I think their new album is already out. Sometime soon, I'm going to be doing a fan talk about it. There's a metalcore band from Australia called In Heart's Wake that I've seen before live. I don't listen to their music a ton, but their live shows are really fun. Last time they threw an inflatable shark into the crowd, and then the singer jumped into the crowd and started riding the inflatable shark.
That's amazing.
So that was pretty cool. Knocked Loose, which is a sort of hardcore type beat down band, is going to be there. One of my favorite, almost guilty pleasures, Necrogoblicon, is going to be there.
That's quite the name.
Necrogoblicon is a goblin-themed melodic death metal band. They have their mascot is named John Goblicon. He is a goblin, and he performs live shows with them. He's the star of two of their music videos, one of which is very popular for a song called No One Survives. There's a Caden Cross, the porn star, is in it, in a very clothed role. But it's a really funny music video. Then, in addition to Necrogoblicon, we've got Under Oath, which is one of the biggest and most influential metalcore bands, or melodic metalcore bands that there has been. They had been broken up for quite a long time, and then they just announced last week that they are making a new album. They had been doing reunion shows for a while in the last couple of years. Like a year and a half ago, they went on a big reunion tour, got together for the first time in a while, and now they're releasing a new album, and a lot of people are really excited about that. I've never listened to a ton of Under Oath, but what I have listened to, I've really enjoyed. So I might have to take some time to familiarize myself with more of their work before the tour rolls around this summer. And then the last one is a pop punk band that I really like called Real Friends. I don't believe I've seen them at Warped Tour before. I'm not sure if they've been at the same time that I've gone, or at the very least, if they have been at Warped Tour, I've missed them, or it was at a time when I didn't listen to them. But I do really like Real Friends, so I'm excited to go and see them. So there's not a ton. Last year, I had a lot of bands that I was really excited to get the chance to go and see. And this year, it's a much more limited list, but it's still a lot that I can get stoked on. So I'm happy for that, especially Every Time I Die and Necrogoblicon. I'm really excited that because Every Time I Die always puts on really good, really rowdy shows.
Okay.
And I'm just interested to see Necrogoblicon in general because they are so funny.
Goblicon sounds like a Transformer name. That would have been like in the
I
back.
am Goblicon.
Yeah, and it, yeah.
Activate the Goblicons. Autobots, roll out.
I loved those cartoons.
I never watched a ton of Transformers as a kid, other than the Michael Bay movies, which now I think, other than the first one, all those are terrible.
Yeah, they're it's weird because like the second one was garbage, but some of the action sequences are pretty good. Like when they're in the forest, I think that one's really good.
They're okay. Anytime that Michael Bay takes a little bit of Ritalin or something like that and is like, oh, hey, this could be like a wide shot and we could have 5 cuts instead of 50.
Yeah.
Someone counted in one of his fight scenes, I think it was from the second movie, there is like 50 cuts in as many seconds. And that is just...
That's too many.
That is far too many. But yeah, I want to watch the original 80s cartoon, like where it leads up to the battle with Unicron.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to watch that.
I really want to watch like Transformers the movie. Spoiler alert, Optimus Prime dies.
And then it gives it to Rodimus Prime.
Rodimus, yep. And I've never seen that, but I own, I think, all the seasons on DVD of the original cartoon. Just I got into it kind of late because it was I didn't watch them growing up because they were never like on TV. But when I was, I don't know, 7 or 8, I started, my parents gave me a little leeway and they were on at like 10 o'clock reruns. And so then I started watching. I was like, this is pretty cool. And then I found one in Walmart and like begged and got it for my birthday. And that's just, that's how I grew up on it.
I had a fair amount of like Transformers toys as a child, but I didn't watch a ton of the cartoons, and then the movies started coming out. But like, and I didn't have those toys. I had the toys from the whatever cartoon run. I don't remember which run of the cartoon was on when I was a kid that I had the toys of, because there was Beast Wars for a little while, but I didn't have those.
Yeah.
Or I think I had one. I had the Triceratops from Beast Wars. But like the other ones, I had a version of Ironhide, and then instead of Bumblebee, it was one called Hot Shot that was like a yellow sports car. And then there was one that was like 3 different boats that you combine. I think it was Devastator or something like that.
Yeah.
He was this huge boat. And then I had Scorponok, who was just a big scorpion. He wasn't a vehicle or anything. And then I never had any of like the main characters.
Yeah.
I never had Optimus Prime. I never had Megatron. Like, I don't know why. I just didn't have them.
I saw at a collecting shop in the Mall of America, they had an Optimus Prime that was 3 feet tall and articulated. Dude. So he wasn't just a statue, and he didn't transform, but he was $500. But he weighed a ton too. I picked the package up.
Well, because you collect action figures, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And so I was looking at it, and it would have been sweet to get because I on the back it has pictures and stuff like that, and you can like he's super posable, but $500 is just too much money.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of like Mall of America, I always like to go to the Lego store when I'm at Mall of America, but I always feel a little bad because all I can do is just look, because Lego it's expensive.
Yeah,
I don't know why Lego is so expensive. It's like Warhammer basically. Except like Warhammer is far more labor intensive than Lego. Lego, you buy it, you put it together, and then it's kind of done. If you want it to be a display piece, then whatever. Warhammer, on the other hand, you buy it, you got to cut it out of the sprue, you got to assemble it and glue it together. And if depending upon if you're just using it for display, then you don't necessarily have to do this. But if you are planning on actually playing Warhammer, what a lot of people have to do in order to be able to change weapons on their models, which is a thing that's very useful, you have to drill out small holes and put tiny magnets in the hands of your Space Marines or what have you.
Yeah.
And then magnets on the attachable weapon pieces so you can attach different weapons when you want to. Then you've got to paint the things, and they are absolutely tiny. I've got a box over there with some of them in there, but they're 8mm scale, so they're like this big.
Yeah.
I say this big on an audio only format, but they're very small. And then you have to paint the things. You don't have to, but you're supposed to paint them. And Games Workshop sells a ton of really expensive paint that you can buy, and some people are ridiculously good at it.
Yeah.
Which I've never even tried to paint any of the miniatures. I do not have the time or the patience or the steady hand for it.
It's insane. I've seen people will buy just a standard action figure and then they'll paint it, custom paint it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the sculpts and action figures go unnoticed because they just slap paint on it. But when these people do, shadowing and stuff like that and wear and tear on the costume.
Highlights and battle damage and that sort of thing. Weathering it's crazy. Really quick, I guess, before we get to talking about the album, is there anything that you want to talk about?
I get to go to Hawaii in about a week, and I am pumped. We have so much stuff planned. We're going to go see the Pearl Harbor Monument. We're going to go...
The museum.
Or museum, yeah.
It's both.
Yeah. And then we're going to go on a 2-hour zip line tour of Hawaii. So they take you up on the back of an ATV and they drive you all the way up to the peak of the island. And then you just zip line down for 2 hours and zip line over where they shot Jurassic Park.
Nice.
And so I'm pumped. It's going to be so much fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun.
My niece asked me, she said, she calls me Bob.
Why does she call you Bob?
Is when she was a little kid, that was just easier than saying my name. But she said,
I
Bob,
suppose when she was real little, you were Jowin.
Yeah. So she just calls me Bob now, but she came up and she said, Bob, when you're in Hawaii, will you FaceTime me so I can see Moana? And I said, yep. So I'm just going to pick a random Hawaiian woman and point the camera and be like, that's Moana.
You got to ask her first. Just be like, hey, can you be Moana for a second?
Can you pretend?
Actually, here's so you could just take a picture of our friend Briley.
That's true.
Because she also has the shoulder tattoo.
Yeah.
I think Moana's got a shoulder tattoo, doesn't? I haven't seen
something
Moana.
Like that. Yeah.
But you could be like, "This is Moana," and be like, "Yeah, we're totally in Hawaii." Just wait to send it to her until you're in Hawaii. Be like, "This is Moana." Just make sure there isn't any snow in the shot. All right, let's get to talking about this album. So we listened to Akroasis. I'm still not sure how to say the name. I'm not sure what it's from or where. Yeah. I don't know if it's a word in a different language, but it's by the German technical death metal band Obscura, which is named after the album that we listened to by Gorguts what episode was that? 6?
Yeah,
something like that.
So.
6. It might have been later than that. Maybe it was 8. I don't remember. Anyway, we listened to the album Obscura, and now we've got the band Obscura. I haven't done a ton of research about them, mostly because I've been really jamming to this record. So we might as well just kind of get into talking about the record itself, because the band doesn't have a super interesting history. There's not a lot of controversy, other than the fact that they have an absolute ton of former members. I didn't bother to count because there's 20 former members. They've had I think 5 different guitarists, 3 different drummers, 4 different bassists. And the only original member of the band is the lead vocalist, who's also the guitarist, and he didn't even start as the lead vocalist. But after the first guitarist that they had that quit, or the first vocalist that they had that quit, who also played guitars, then he did vocals and guitars after that. So it's it was really confusing.
Jumble,
yeah, a really weird jumble of former members that is very hard to keep track of. But this album, I listened to this, and then my Spotify just went automatically to their next one. I was like, this is also really good. And then I went to the next one, and I was like, this is also really good. So I just kept on listening to it. This is their latest album from 2016. It's really good. I don't have a ton to say about it. It reminded me a lot of Opeth, which is interesting because I think this band really fills a niche that Opeth used to fill. So Opeth is a Swedish progressive, sometimes technical death metal band. The progressive death metal is more accurate. They don't get particularly technical, but they always had melodic tendencies to their stuff to the point where now they mostly play just progressive rock. They haven't released a progressive death metal album since, I think, 2009 with Watershed. And that's right around when Obscura started to become more popular and sort of hit the scene. And I think they really fill that niche very well. The album that came before this particularly, which was Omnivium, reminded me a lot of some of Opeth's earlier work. That one had a lot more melodic vocals. This one had some weird melodic vocals that were almost always through a vocoder with some sort of a phaser effect on them. I think I'm not particularly knowledgeable about audio effects, but I'm pretty sure that it was a vocoder that they were putting the vocals through, which was an interesting choice. I wasn't the hugest fan of it at all points, but ultimately this record had a lot of stuff on it that I had been looking for more of, because Opeth was really the only band that I had found that sort of filled this niche. And I know there's more of them out there. I just hadn't listened to it. And then we decided to listen to this record, and I'm like, oh, hey, this is stuff I really like. Let's go look for even more of it.
Yeah. I liked it. It was quick and brisk for the most part.
Yeah.
And especially the drums. I really enjoyed the drums on this album. And normally, I started listening to it while I wasn't running. And I'm not a big fan of 5 to 7 minute songs. That's just a little too long for me. But listening to it while I was running, it was really good to have these songs stretched out over a longer period of time versus kind of short ones. Because it really, I don't know if it was ever like I would sit and listen to it, but it's something that really helped me to like work out.
Yeah. I think a lot of these songs do a really good job at keeping up their variety and making sure they don't overstay their welcome. Yeah. Which is more than can be said for some progressive music. But these tracks in particular, like we've been in kind of a progressive metal bender for like the last month. Yeah. And I think that's okay, because most of these albums have been really good, kind of with the exception of last week. Where it was... Bleh. Bleh. A lot of these albums have been really good, and it was really nice to come across something like this that I hadn't listened to before. Yeah,
I'm glad you liked it, because I've enjoyed most of everything we've listened to. Again, with the exception of last week where it was yeah. But it's cool to know that you found something that
I was really happy because when we sampled it last week before we decided on listening to this, and I wasn't entirely sure. I thought the bass guitar sounded really weird. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that? Like when you could hear the bass guitar over the rest of the mix, did it sound off to you? Yeah. Like it sounded a little strange, and I thought for a little bit that I had figured out why it sounded so different, because one of the previous bassists that they had played a fretless bass. So a normal guitar of any type has a whole bunch of metal frets on it that you use to change between semitones. Again, I'm probably using music theory terms that I don't entirely understand, so forgive me if that's completely inaccurate. But normally you've got metal frets on there. But a fretless bass guitar has none, as the name would imply, more similar to like an upright bass or any other kind of stringed bow instrument. Doesn't have frets on it. And so this allows you to switch between notes very fluidly without hearing too much of a difference. And I thought maybe that's why the bass sounds so different. Yeah. But that guy doesn't play with him anymore.
Oh, so this album he's playing with frets?
I don't know. The picture that I found of the bassist that they do have, his bass has frets on it, but that might be from his other band. I don't know if like the fretless bass was just a function of being in Obscura, or if the guitar went with him, because Wikipedia specifically listed that guy as being a fretless bass player.
Okay.
So I don't know.
It's up in the air.
So I don't have an answer for why the bass sounded kind of weird. I've gotten used to it because the rest of it I dig so much, and I've kind of grown a taste for the way that the bass guitar sounds on this record. But at first it just sounds different. It sounds really weird.
Yeah.
I'm used to bass being a lot deeper and a lot less distinct, which is just kind of a feature of rock in general, as bass guitar kind of generally tends to be drowned out and it doesn't sound distinct, but it is still there for effect, and it's punchy, and it provides a really good bass for the rest of the song to go on top of, which is why you don't hear it, because everything else is on top of it.
And that's why there's the joke that, like, if you don't get any ladies, you're the bass player of the band.
Well, I wrote a play last year. You remember Ominous Carnage, and the bass player was just an idiot. Not to offend any bass players out there. You are very valuable members of your bands.
You're all important.
Now we got to validate you. No, and the bass is played very, very well on this record. It's not particularly fast. There's two kind of, I think especially in death metal, there's two schools of thought when it comes to bass. There is the traditional school of thought of playing bass, where you don't necessarily keep tempo with the drums and the guitar, and you are still able, obviously, to provide the bass line. Mm-hmm. Then there's the other school of thought, which for me is most prominently displayed in Cattle Decapitation, where the bassist is just going to town and playing as fast as everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have come to appreciate the bass playing on this record. At first, it was a little off-putting,
but now you got it.
Now I got it.
One thing that I thought was that right away you said the voice encoder.
Or the vocoder.
Vocoder.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Vocaloid. It's Hatsune Miku.
I have less idea than you do. But that was really, because it didn't necessarily carry through the entire time, but it started off and it was that kind of weird, not techno sound, but you could tell it was going through something.
I understand what you mean by that. It's very futuristic.
Yeah, and I was like, what are we listening to this week? Yeah. And then it kicked in and I thought, okay, I can get into this. but yeah, sometimes it was okay, but that the first song, I was like, what are we listening to?
What is this? The first song was really interesting. The second song, which is the monist, something like that. I liked that song, but it felt kind of out of I like that song, but it felt kind of out of place with the rest of the record, because that one is very much sort of a straight up, very punchy death metal song, where the rest of them have a lot of, melodic and progressive parts. But that one was just a very in your face death metal song that really reminded me of like new Suffocation. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was the vocals, but like I got a lot of vibes from it that reminded me of Suffocation. And it just felt a little out of place. The vocals on this record, I thought, were really good, although I would have liked to hear a little bit more variety, because it tended to be one or the other. Like on the Monist, the majority of it was this really deep death growl.
Yeah.
And then on most of the other songs, those death growls were about 30%, and then the rest of it was kind of this almost shrill scream, sort of a black metal scream to it. Not as high as like George Clark from Deaf Heaven, but like sort of a shrill, very raspy scream that I liked, but I would have liked to hear a bit more variety from that vocalist. But vocal variety is not like a huge thing that you hear in regular death metal, I think. You hear it more in like brutal death metal sometimes, and like deathcore especially is huge on vocal variety. You listen to somebody like Ben Dewar from Shadow of Intent. He's able to do all kinds of different stuff. It's crazy. Or you've got, Travis Ryan from Cattle Decap, which is a death grind band. He's able to do a ton of different, really distinct and really cool vocals. But then in a lot of other death metal bands, like Suffocation or Cannibal Corpse. There's just kind of the one vocal, or you've just got your low and your high, and that's all you have. And that's okay, but I've sort of come up with vocalists that are able to do a lot of really impressive stuff. And sometimes when I don't hear that, it feels like there's something missing.
It's hard to go from great back to average, or even...
I mean, it's sort of apples. It's apples to apples, or not apples to apples.
Apples to apples.
It's apples to apples. They're both apples, damn it. No, it's apples to oranges, I think, because both things can be great, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of one thing doesn't necessarily cheapen another thing that is still really good, but doesn't have the other thing that I like.
That's true.
A really, really good burger does not suddenly become shitty because I didn't get pickles on it.
Yeah, that's true.
A really, really good burger does become shitty if they spoiled it by charbroiling the thing. You had good beef there, good potential, and you ruined it. You ruined it, you monsters.
Now I know not to do that if I ever cook you a burger.
Yeah, if you ever make me a burger, do not charbroil the thing. I want it medium rare, damn it.
Medium rare.
I want pink in there, and I want some juice, and I want it to be good.
See, and I'm a well done man.
Get out.
Podcast is over.
Get out of my apartment, damn it.
You hear the mics hit the ground, and then us wrestling as Kale chokes me to death.
Why, you little...
Yep. Firm, but with a little give. These steaks are medium rare.
What if somebody wants theirs well done?
Then we ask them politely but firmly to leave.
That's my philosophy on life right there.
Oh, man.
Just like all the beef that I eat, if I have an option, I will get it either medium or medium rare. And that sort of depends on the restaurant. I've had this discussion with Leaf a couple times, my roommate. Some restaurants' idea of what constitutes medium rare is bleeding, and some restaurants' idea of what constitutes medium is well done.
Yeah.
So, like, I should really take notes and have a list in my pocket at all times of like, okay, this place, if I get a medium, it's going to be, well done. So I need to order like a rare, and then it'll be medium.
Yeah.
Ruby Tuesdays is kind of bad about that. I like their burgers, but like you order a medium rare, and that thing's going to have blood in it. At least in my experience. Their burgers are very messy to eat. Anything else we got about the album? We managed to vamp. We managed to vamp enough to where we're now at time. Any final thoughts about Akroasis by Obscura? I forgot the name of the band. I'm so bad at remembering the names of bands, even when they're ones that I really like.
Yeah.
It's like with people, too. Like, I could have a really good time with someone, but if I've only met them a couple of times, I am not going to remember their name.
Yeah, same. I could spend hours with somebody, and the next day I wouldn't remember what their name was.
My friend Soupy from Fargo, we call him Soupy because he looks, with a beard, he looks like the lead singer of the Wonder Years, whose nickname is also Soupy. So his name is Justin. I knew him and was friends with him for like a couple of years before I could consistently remember what his name was. I don't have any answer as to why that was, but I do have an answer. It's I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Okay? All right.
But this album, it was good. Like I said, it was a good workout.
It's a good workout record?
Yeah, because
it does keep a really good pace throughout.
Yeah.
There's that is the thing that makes it distinct from Opeth for me, is Opeth tends to have a lot of very pretty and still engaging parts, but I would be willing to forgive someone for saying they are boring. Mm-hmm. Whereas on this record, those slow parts are usually like at most a minute long. On an Opeth record, they can stretch out to like 2:30 and sometimes longer, which they usually do a really good job of building it back up slowly and ratcheting up the excitement a little bit. But like this band and this album, they don't waste your time.
Yeah. They do it. They know what they're doing when they don't need to take as much time to ramp it up.
This band does not waste your time with anything, I think. If it's a 7-minute song, it's going to be full of 7 minutes of different stuff. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that'll get you engaged. So yeah, I'm really glad that we came across this record and that we listened to it, because I really enjoyed it, and I've been enjoying the rest of their work as well, except for their first album, their very first album, and came out in 2006. That one, the production is just a little too low for my tastes, especially considering it's like a progressive technical death metal.
Yeah.
If it was like black metal or grindcore, I wouldn't mind, but I think progressive and technical death metal definitely needs to be of a higher production standard for me to really enjoy it. But every record after that is beautifully produced, including this one. The mix is a little muddy on this one, but it's not terrible. Okay, I keep on saying I've got nothing else, and then something springs to mind. But I think finally, I have nothing left to say.
We've come to a close.
I have nothing left to say say our tagline way too early. Yeah, thank you all very much for listening. My name is. We gotta plug social media. We're obligated legally. That's not true. We're not legally obligated.
Nobody's forcing us to do.
Nobody's forcing us to do. We're forcing ourselves to do it. So yeah, if you like this podcast, please give us a like on Facebook, on our Facebook page at the Bronze Metalist. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I am going to probably take a picture of Jaron's awesome pants that he wore.
Oh, yeah.
His superhero pants that he wore to the podcast tonight. I'll be posting that if you're interested in looking at that. We post fun pictures of each other making dumb faces sometimes.
We do. We make a lot of dumb faces, so it's pretty easy to take pictures.
The last one that I posted of you got quite a few likes, so you should be proud of yourself on that. Jaron, where can people listen to our podcast besides whatever it is they're listening to us now? Listening to us on now.
If you're not listening to us on Libsyn, you can find us on Libsyn. But if you're not listening to us on iTunes, you can find us on iTunes.
And if you're not willing to use either of those services, you can also find us on YouTube.
Yes.
You can also find Fan Talk on YouTube. I'm going to be recording a new episode, probably talking about Vans Warped Tour 2018. Stay tuned for that. That'll probably be out on Saturday, along with this podcast, which we're recording on Thursday. We record on Thursdays, and they come out on Saturday. I bet you all didn't know that.
Ha-ha.
All right. Time for this to end. My name's Kale.
My name's Jaron.
And we have nothing left to say.